There is a quiet panic that haunts highly intelligent people. You look around, and it seems as though everyone else has effortlessly slipped into their roles. They have the career, the relationships, the certainty. Meanwhile, you feel paralyzed by a profound sense of being behind. You watch your peers accelerate, signing the contracts, building the families, climbing the visible ladders, and you wonder in the silence of your own mind if you are fundamentally broken. You are not. Carl Jung understood a breathtaking truth about human development that the modern world has forgotten. You are not defective. You are not lazy. You are not lost. You are a complex architecture, and complex architecture demands a longer period of unseen foundational work. Today, you will decode the deep psychology of the late bloomer and why the rarest minds require the longest incubation. Read that line again. The creation of something new, not borrowed, not copied, not assembled from the templates handed to you by a society addicted to speed. Something new requires inner necessity, and inner necessity cannot be rushed. It cannot be scheduled. It cannot be performed on the timeline of people who never had anything truly original to build in the first place. And this is the wound the modern world has carved into you. You were told from the earliest age that life is a race, that milestones must be hit on a precise calendar, that by 22 you must have a career, by 25 a partner, by 30 a house, by 35 the unshakable certainty of having arrived. And when you did not hit these markers with the mechanical precision of your peers, the system did not pause to ask why. It simply whispered to you, quietly and constantly, that you must be broken, that something must be wrong with you, that your intelligence, your depth, your sensitivity to nuance must somehow be defective software in a world designed for faster machines. But here is the truth, that Carl Jung spent his entire career excavating from the deep psychology of human individuation. The people who appear to be ahead of you are not ahead of you in any meaningful sense. They are simply earlier, and early is not the same as deep. Early is not the same as real. Early is not the same as sovereign. The vast majority of those peers you envy did not build something. They adopted something. They slipped into a prefabricated persona that was waiting for them on the shelf, a costume that fit their family, their region, their economic class, their inherited expectations. They did not become themselves. They became the script that was handed to them. And while that script will carry them comfortably for a decade, perhaps two, the day will come when the costume no longer fits the body underneath. And on that day, they will face a collapse so total that you, with your slower and deeper incubation, will already be standing on architecture they cannot even comprehend. So before we descend deeper into this forbidden understanding of late bloomer psychology and the strategic advantage of feeling behind, I need you to do something. If these ideas resonate with you, hit that subscribe button for more top-tier content. Also, drop a "trust the delay" in the comments so I know you're ready. Let's dive in. Consider for a moment the construction of a skyscraper. You can drive past the construction site every day for months and see nothing. No tower rising, no visible progress, no reason to believe anything significant is happening at all. Meanwhile, 2 blocks away, you watch a simple residential structure go up in weeks. Frame, walls, roof finished. The neighborhood celebrates its speed. They take photographs. They marvel at the efficiency. But the skyscraper site? Silent, empty, apparently doing nothing. Yet what is actually happening beneath that surface is the most consequential work of the entire project. Engineers are driving foundations dozens of meters into bedrock. They are pouring reinforced concrete in volumes that would seem absurd for any normal building. They are constructing the silent, invisible architecture that will one day support a structure piercing the clouds. The simple house has no need for this. Its foundation is shallow because its ambition is shallow. It can rise quickly precisely because it is not built to rise high. This is the skyscraper principle, and this is the principle that Carl Jung embedded into the deep psychology of individuation. Complex minds require complex foundations, and complex foundations are constructed in silence, in delay, in what the untrained eye perceives as stagnation. What looks like you falling behind is, in psychological reality, you sinking shafts of self-knowledge into bedrock that your peers have never even known existed. They built on topsoil. You are building on stone. They will rise 3 stories. You are being prepared to rise 300. But this means, for now, you will appear to be doing nothing. You will appear, by every visible metric, to be losing. And the agony of this is not the delay itself. The agony is that no one around you understands what is being constructed beneath the surface. Your family does not see it. Your peers do not see it. The strangers measuring your life against their templates do not see it. And in the absence of external validation, you have been forced to question whether anything is being built at all. Let me tell you, with the full authority of Jungian deep psychology, that something is being built. Something rare, something that the world cannot mass produce, something that requires you specifically to remain in this incubation long enough for it to take its final and unshakable shape. Now here is the part that the motivational industry will never tell you, because it disrupts the entire profitable mythology of speed. There is a profound danger in peaking early. There is a hidden catastrophe woven into the lives of those who hit every milestone on time. Carl Jung observed with clinical precision that the first half of life is the construction of the persona, the social mask, the role one plays to gain acceptance and structure from the tribe. For most people, this persona is adopted quickly, almost unconsciously, and they wear it through their 20s and 30s with confidence. They are the doctor, the executive, the dutiful spouse, the high-performing professional. And from the outside, they look magnificent. From the outside, they look like everything you were told you should be. But Jung understood what lies on the other side of that early certainty. He called it the midlife confrontation. The moment, somewhere between 35 and 45, when the persona that was adopted too quickly begins to crack. When the borrowed identity reveals itself as borrowed. When the person inside the costume looks in the mirror and realizes they have no idea who they actually are because they never paused long enough to find out. And this confrontation is not a small thing. It is the dissolution of an entire false self. It is the collapse of a structure built on shallow foundations. It is the silent epidemic behind every midlife crisis, every sudden divorce, every executive who walks away from a 30-year career, every person who arrives at their pinnacle and discovers it was the wrong mountain entirely. They peaked early, and the price of peaking early is that you peak on someone else's terms, with someone else's definitions, in service to someone else's design for your life. You, on the other hand, have been spared this catastrophe. Your delay, which you have been taught to interpret as failure, is in fact a profound protection. You did not rush into the persona because something inside you, something wiser than your conscious mind, refused to settle for a borrowed identity. Your inner sovereignty, your deep psychology, your shadow itself, all conspired to slow you down, to make you ask the harder questions, to make you sit in the uncomfortable uncertainty long enough that whatever you eventually build will be authentically yours. Your peers are constructing their first crisis. You are skipping it entirely. And when they enter their 40s in confusion and collapse, you will be entering yours with the calm clarity of someone who did the foundational work 2 decades before they were forced to. This is the trade you have unknowingly made. This is the strategic advantage hidden inside the agony of feeling behind. But this incubation period will undo you completely if you fall into the trap of the next principle. the one almost every intelligent late bloomer eventually stumbles into. The trap is this: you begin to compare your interior to their exterior. You see the curated, polished, performance-ready surface of their lives, and you measure it against the messy, uncertain, half-formed interior of your own. And of course you lose this comparison. Of course you feel defective. Of course you spiral into the conviction that something is fundamentally wrong with you. You are not comparing equivalent things. You are comparing a finished movie poster to a film still in production. You are comparing the marketing campaign to the manufacturing process. You are placing their social media persona, their LinkedIn announcements, their wedding photographs, their carefully constructed external presentation beside the raw and unfinished interior of your actual psychological life. This is not a fair comparison. This is not even a real comparison. It is a hallucination, a distortion, a category error that Carl Jung would have recognized as a fundamental misunderstanding of the difference between persona and self. Their persona is finished because persona is, by its very nature, a surface. It is designed to be quickly assembled and publicly displayed. Your self is not finished because self is, by its very nature, a depth. It is designed to be slowly excavated and privately known. And here is the part that will sting, but only for a moment, before it begins to liberate you. You are not behind them. You are working on a different problem entirely. They are decorating a room. You are surveying the land for a cathedral. They are arranging the furniture. You are pouring the foundation. They are hosting the dinner party. You are still studying the blueprints. There is no version of this comparison in which you lose, because there is no version of this comparison that is actually valid. The only thing you lose is the time and emotional energy you spend running their race instead of yours. So the first act of strategic detachment, the first move of inner sovereignty, is this: you stop comparing, not by force, not by suppression, not by pretending you do not notice their apparent success. You stop comparing by genuinely understanding, in the deepest part of your deep psychology, that you and they are not in the same game. You never were, you never will be. And the moment this truth settles into your bones, an enormous weight begins to lift. The panic begins to quiet. The shame begins to dissolve, and in its place, something else begins to grow. Something that Carl Jung would have called the first stirrings of individuation, the slow awakening of the sovereign self that has been quietly forming inside you all along. There is an archetype in deep psychology that you need to understand, because it is the precise pattern that describes your current state. Jung wrote extensively about the figure of the slumbering king or the slumbering queen, a sovereign consciousness that exists within the psyche but has not yet been awakened to its full authority. In the mythology of nearly every culture, this figure appears: the future king raised in obscurity, the hidden heir who does not yet know their lineage, the chosen one who looks for years like the most ordinary and unremarkable member of the village. And in every version of this myth there's a long period of incubation, a period in which the sovereign sleeps, a period in which the world dismisses them, a period in which they themselves do not recognize who they are or what they will become. This period is not a flaw in the story, it is the engine of the story. Without the long sleep there is no awakening. Without the period of obscurity there is no emergence. Without the years of being underestimated, dismissed, and overlooked, there is no eventual revelation of the sovereign self that was being prepared in silence the entire time. This is your current chapter. This is what your delay actually is. You are not stuck. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are the slumbering sovereign in the incubation phase of your own mythology, and the world's failure to recognize you is not a sign of your inadequacy. It is a feature of the archetype itself. The sovereign is always underestimated before they are revealed. The sovereign is always dismissed before they are crowned. The sovereign is always, without exception, late by the calendar of the masses, because the sovereign is operating on a timeline that the masses cannot perceive. And here is what shadow work and deep psychology will teach you, if you have the patience to listen. The very things you have been ashamed of, the procrastination, the confusion, the inability to commit to the obvious paths, the strange resistance to playing the game that everyone else seems to play so easily. These are not defects. These are the protective instincts of the slumbering sovereign, refusing to be miscast in a smaller role. Something inside you knows, something inside you has always known, that the script being handed to you was beneath you, that the milestones being measured around you were not your milestones, that the version of success being marketed to you was a counterfeit of the sovereignty you are actually being prepared for. And so you stalled, you hesitated, you appeared to fail. And in that appearance of failure, you were quietly, invisibly being protected from a life that would have been a betrayal of your actual architecture. Before we reveal the precise tactical framework for emerging from this incubation with full sovereign authority, you need to understand one more thing about the deep psychology of what is happening inside you right now. Return for a moment to the words of Carl Jung. Inner necessity. The creative mind plays with the objects it loves, acting from inner necessity. This phrase is the entire key to understanding why your timeline cannot and must not match anyone else's. Inner necessity is not external pressure. It is not the cultural calendar. It is not the expectations of your family, your peers, your social media feed, or the algorithms designed to make you feel inadequate every time you scroll. Inner necessity is the deep, organic, biological imperative of your specific psyche to construct itself according to its own design. And inner necessity cannot be hurried because it operates on a logic deeper than the conscious mind. It operates on the logic of soul formation, of identity construction, of the slow integration of every experience, every wound, every insight, every shadow element into a coherent and authentic self. The people who appear ahead of you skipped this process. They responded to external pressure instead of inner necessity. They built quickly because they built from the outside in. You are building slowly because you are building from the inside out. And these are not just different speeds. These are different processes entirely, producing different kinds of structures, capable of withstanding different magnitudes of pressure. The structure built from the outside in collapses the moment external validation is withdrawn. The structure built from the inside out cannot collapse because it is not dependent on external validation in the first place. This is inner sovereignty. This is what your delay is producing. This is the gift hidden inside every year you have spent feeling behind. And the moment you stop fighting your inner necessity, the moment you stop trying to force yourself onto someone else's timeline, the moment you begin to trust the intelligence of your own incubation, the entire experience of your life begins to transform. The shame quiets, the urgency softens, the panic dissolves, and in its place arrives something almost unrecognizable at first, because you have never been allowed to feel it before. Patience, real patience, not resignation, not defeat, not the bitter patience of someone who has given up. The deep patience of someone who finally understands that what they are building cannot be rushed and would not be worth building if it could be. This patience is the foundation of self-mastery. This patience is the soil from which sovereign identity grows. This patience is what separates the late bloomer, who becomes monumental, from the early bloomer, who becomes obsolete. So how, then, does the slumbering sovereign awaken? How does the incubation phase finally yield to the emergence phase? This is the question your conscious mind has been asking for years, and the answer is both simpler and more demanding than you expect. The sovereign does not emerge by force. The sovereign does not emerge by frantic effort, by hustle culture, by the desperate sprint to catch up to peers who were never in your race. The sovereign emerges through what Carl Jung called the integration of the shadow, the conscious recognition and assimilation of every part of yourself that you have been taught to disown. Your perceived failures, your unconventional path, your resistance to the templates, your strange interests and contradictions and depths, all of these are not obstacles to your emergence. They are the raw material of your emergence. Shadow work, in this context, is not a therapeutic exercise. It is an architectural one. You are integrating the disowned materials of your own psyche into the load-bearing structure of your sovereign self. And every piece you reclaim adds strength to a foundation that nothing in the external world can ever shake. Begin here. Begin by writing down in private every quality about yourself that you have apologized for. Every interest that did not fit the mold, every choice that diverged from the expected path, every season of apparent stagnation, every relationship that did not conform, every ambition that seemed too strange to speak aloud. Look at the list, read it slowly, and understand that this list is not the record of your failures. This list is the blueprint of your sovereignty. Every item is a foundation stone. Every divergence is a structural element. Every delay is an act of architectural integrity. Then begin to act, not from the panic of catching up, but from the calm of inner necessity. Ask yourself, in any decision, not what would my peers do, but what does the architecture I am building actually require? Sometimes it will require rest. Sometimes it will require silence. Sometimes it will require a strange lateral move that no one around you understands. Trust it. Your deep psychology is wiser than the conscious mind that has been measuring you against the wrong standards. Inner sovereignty grows in the soil of self-trust, and self-trust grows when you finally stop betraying your inner necessity in order to perform a persona that was never yours. And here is what will happen, slowly at first, and then with gathering momentum that becomes impossible to ignore. Your peers will begin to encounter the limits of their shallow foundations. Their crises will arrive on schedule, their costumes will begin to crack, and you, who appeared so far behind, will discover that you were never behind at all. You were beneath, sinking foundations into bedrock, building emotional intelligence and self-mastery into the architecture of who you actually are. And when the moment of emergence finally arrives, it will not look like a sprint. It will look like a tower rising, slowly and inevitably, into a sky that no shallow structure can ever reach. The world will call it sudden. The world will call it overnight. The world will marvel that you came from nowhere. You will know the truth. You came from depth. You came from incubation. You came from years of trusted delay that the impatient could never have endured. You have just received what almost no one is taught. That the agony of feeling behind is not the verdict of your inadequacy, but the signature of your complexity. Carl Jung understood this. The mythology of every culture has whispered it for centuries. The slumbering sovereign sleeps until the sleep itself has done its work, and then, and only then, the awakening arrives. Monumental and inevitable. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are not behind. You are incubating, and the longer the incubation, the larger the architecture that is being prepared. So here is your challenge, beginning today. Stop measuring yourself against the timeline of the masses. Stop apologizing for the depth that demands a longer formation. Stop interpreting your slow burn as failure when it is, in fact, the precise mechanism by which sovereignty is built. Trust the delay. Trust the inner necessity. Trust the deep psychology of your own becoming. And if you have felt this script speak to something true and dormant inside you, drop the words "slumbering sovereign" in the comments below. Let it be a declaration. Let it be the moment you stop running someone else's race and finally begin honoring your own architecture. This is not a channel for the impatient. This is not a channel for those satisfied with borrowed identities and shallow foundations. This is a channel for the rarest minds, the ones building cathedrals in a world content with cottages, the ones whose emergence will be monumental precisely because their incubation was long. If you are one of them, you already know. Subscribe. Stay. The deeper psychology of inner sovereignty is only just beginning to unfold here, and what comes next will fortify the architecture you are already building, whether you knew it or not. And whatever you do, don't stop now. The on-screen video matters more than you think. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. I'll see you there. See what others miss. Know what others fear. Become who others can't.